Iran fired. America did not blink. On May 4th, 2026, 2 U.S. destroyers pushed through the Strait of Hormuz, and nothing Iran put in their path made them turn back. Iran had tried to turn that passage into a pressure chamber. Small boats moved in. Drones watched from the air. Missiles and artillery turned the coastline into a warning line. State media declared American power had been humiliated before the ships even cleared the strait. The world waited for the explosion that would send oil prices screaming and force Washington to flinch. But the explosion never came. The destroyers were not hit. They did not stop. They did not turn around. They kept moving through the narrow throat of the global oil economy. And that passage exposed the one thing Tehran cannot afford the world to understand: Iran's strongest weapon was not firepower alone. It is hesitation. And hesitation only works if the other side stops moving. America did not stop. The first American target was not a destroyer. It was a man filling his pickup at a gas station 7,000 miles away. That is the brutal logic of the Hormuz strategy. Tehran can miss the ship and still hit the household. It can fire near a sea lane and make a family in Kansas wonder why a full tank suddenly costs more. Hormuz does not need to burn to hurt America. It only needs to shake hard enough for panic to enter the price. Most Americans will never sail through the Strait of Hormuz. Many could not find it on a map without help. But the strait can still find them. It finds them through diesel, through freight, through airline fuel, through grocery prices, through the retirement account that drops when markets smell a crisis. One narrow passage between Iran and Oman can turn a local threat into a national bill. That is why Tehran watches Hormuz like a loaded lever. Pull it the right way, and the pain travels farther than any missile. Iran does not need to close Hormuz completely. Closing it outright would invite a massive response. Tehran understands that. A total shutdown is loud, risky, and expensive. Market panic is cheaper. A drone near a tanker, a fast boat cutting too close, a missile warning from the coast, a state media headline claiming American power has been humiliated. Oil traders do not wait for perfect proof. Insurance companies do not bet on calm seas. Shipping firms do not gamble with cruise cargo. And billion-dollar vessels, uncertainty moves first. Facts arrive later. That is how the bill builds. One warning, one headline, one insurer gets nervous, one shipping route slows, one trader panics, one barrel jumps. Then one father in Kansas wonders why filling his truck suddenly feels like paying for someone else's war. That is the chain Tehran wants. Not a clean naval victory, not a glorious battle. A pressure wave that starts in the Persian Gulf and ends at the pump, the grocery store, and the family budget. The real target is confidence. Confidence that tankers can sail. Confidence that fuel will arrive. Confidence that Washington can still keep the sea lanes open. Break that confidence and Iran gains leverage without sinking a carrier, without winning a battle, and without paying the full price of open war. A few miles of water become a tax on everyone who drives, ships, flies, farms, or buys groceries. That is what made the USS Truxtun and USS Mason more than 2 gray holes on a dangerous route. They were a message to the market. The lane is still open, the convoy still moves. Panic does not get to set the price alone. Tehran wanted movement to look impossible. The destroyers made movement visible. Oil traders were watching, insurers were watching, shipping companies were watching, hostile capitals were watching. And on May 4th, Tehran's pressure campaign took its first real hit. Not because the crisis ended. It did not. Not because Iran suddenly lost the ability to threaten Hormuz. It did not. But because psychological leverage only works when people believe it can stop motion. Once American destroyers kept moving through the narrow throat of the global oil economy, Tehran's cheapest weapon lost some of its magic. If intimidation fails, Iran faces a harder choice. Step back, or climb toward real escalation. And that is where the next layer of this fight begins. Iran cannot fight the US Navy head-on. Tehran knows it. Washington knows it. Every commander in the Gulf knows it. If Iran puts its conventional fleet against American destroyers, carrier aircraft, submarines, satellites, and long-range strike platforms, the ending is not a mystery. It is math. So Iran does not build its plan around a clean naval duel. It builds its plan around noise. Not one knockout punch, 100 small cuts, not a battle line, a swarm. Not victory in the old sense. Delay, panic, pressure, and hesitation. Picture the real battlefield, not a clean blue map with arrows, a narrow waterway at night, radar screens glowing, tanker crews staring into the dark, American sailors tracking contacts that appear, vanish, split, and return. A small Iranian fast boat cuts across the waterline. It is not a destroyer. It may be fiberglass. It may carry a few armed men, a radio, a launcher, or just enough aggression to force a reaction. Yet that small boat is challenging a U.S. warship weighing around 9,000 tons. That sounds absurd until the purpose becomes clear. The fast boat does not need to win. It only needs to crowd the decision space. Move too close, turn too sharply, force the destroyer to track it, warn it, aim at it, and decide whether it is a threat or bait. While that happens, a drone appears above the water. A radar flickers from the coast. A missile team hides behind terrain. A state media channel starts writing the headline before the facts exist. Iran is not trying to outgun America. Iran is trying to overload the moment. That is how weaker powers fight stronger ones. They do not ask, can we destroy the enemy fleet? They ask, can we make the enemy hesitate long enough for politics, markets, and public opinion to do the damage? Iran's visible weapons are boats, drones, missiles, mines, and artillery. But the real payload is uncertainty. A mine does not have to sink a ship to work. It only has to make every captain wonder where the next mine is. A drone does not have to destroy a destroyer. It only has to make every radar operator ask what else is coming behind it. Tehran's navy is not built to defeat America. It is built to make America look unsure. One fast boat looks weak. 10 fast boats from different angles look like a problem. Add drones, overhead missile warnings from the coast radio threats, and propaganda claims, and the battlefield becomes crowded. Every object could be a weapon. Every warning could be a bluff. Every bluff could hide a real shot. That gray zone is where Iran wants the fight to live. The propaganda matters as much as the hardware. Iran can lose a tactical exchange and still try to win the headline. If a missile misses, state media can claim it hit. If a U.S. ship keeps moving, Tehran can tell its domestic audience the Americans were forced to retreat. If no explosion happens, the story can still be sold as resistance warning or humiliation. Cheap tools can still be useful. Iran is not only speaking to Washington, it is speaking to oil traders, shipping firms, foreign governments, and its own people. But confusion has a weakness. It works best against an opponent that is isolated, slow, or blind. It loses power against a force that can see the board and share the picture instantly. A swarm needs fog. A bluff needs delay. A propaganda claim needs time to harden before facts catch up. If American sensors, aircraft, ships, and commanders connect fast enough, Iran's fog begins to thin. The small boat becomes a track. The drone becomes a target. The radar flicker becomes a coordinate. The headline loses oxygen. That is why the Hormuz passage mattered. The USS Truxtun and USS Mason did not just sail through pressure, they sailed through the kind of pressure Iran designed to create hesitation. Small boats, drones, missiles, artillery, and state media all push toward one result: stop the ship, slow the convoy, and make the world question whether the lane was still safe. But the ships kept moving. That single fact cut deeper than any speech. Iran's strategy depends on making uncertainty look larger than firepower. On May 4th, uncertainty failed to stop steel. Now Tehran faces the problem every asymmetric power eventually faces. Harassment works until it stops working. Bluffing is cheap until someone calls the bluff. A swarm creates pressure until the target keeps moving through it. Iran built its Hormuz strategy around confusion because confusion is cheaper than war. But once confusion starts to fail, the next question becomes brutal. What happens when America brings the full network into the fight? Project Freedom was not just an escort mission. It was a message written in steel radar and jet fuel. Iran wanted the world to believe 2 American destroyers had entered Hormuz alone, trapped between a hostile coastline and a narrow strip of water. But the USS Truxtun and USS Mason were never alone. They were the visible edge of something much larger. Behind them stood the USS Abraham Lincoln in the Arabian Sea, guided missile destroyers, helicopters, drones, more than 100 aircraft. And around 15,000 American service members wired into one mission: keep the lane open. Iran built its plan around clutter. America answered with a connected kill chain. That is the part Tehran does not want people to understand. A fast boat racing across the water looks dangerous until the network labels it. A drone rising from the haze looks mysterious until the network tracks it. A coastal radar flickering for 3 seconds looks like a ghost until the network turns it into a coordinate. Iran wants confusion to feel bigger than firepower. Project Freedom was designed to do the opposite: take confusion, break it apart, name every threat, then decide which threat matters first. The old picture of naval war is simple: one ship faces another ship, one captain stares down another captain. Guns fire, missiles launch, the stronger vessel wins. Hormuz does not work that way anymore. A destroyer inside that strait is not just a destroyer. It is a node inside a moving combat web. The ship is the fist. The kill chain is the nervous system. Sensors find the threat. Aircraft confirm it. Data links move the picture. Commanders decide. Weapons wait. If Iran makes one wrong move, that move does not meet one ship. It meets the entire system. Now picture the sequence. An Iranian radar wakes up on the coast. The EA-18G Growler hears it. An F-35 maps the signal. An E-2D Hawkeye widens the sky picture. Link 16 pushes the data across the force. Aegis on the destroyer starts sorting the threat from the noise. A missile battery that thought it was hidden becomes a coordinate. A drone that thought it was watching becomes watched. A fast boat that thought it was hunting becomes a track on a screen. For the sailors inside the strait, that network is not theory. It is the difference between being surrounded and being backed by an invisible army. Aegis is where the pressure turns into math. On an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, Aegis does not just watch the sky, it organizes chaos. It tracks ranks and prioritizes threats faster than a human crew could ever do alone. In Hormuz, that matters because Iran's entire plan is to crowd the screen. Boats, drones, missile warnings, artillery pressure, false claims, sudden movements. A normal observer sees disorder. Aegis sees categories: which target is real, which one is bait, which one gets engaged first if the line is crossed. Iran wants panic. Aegis turns panic into a firing solution. Then come the layers above and around the ships. The Hawkeye sees farther than the destroyer can see from the surface. The F-35 pushes silent sensors toward the danger. The Growler hunts electronic fingerprints. Super Hornets provide the muscle if the fight turns hot. High-altitude surveillance drones keep staring when human pilots must rotate out. Helicopters watch the waterline where small boats try to hide inside speed and clutter. None of these platforms wins the fight alone. Together, they create the one thing Iran fears most: a battlefield where every cheap trick becomes visible. But none of this makes Hormuz safe. It only makes it survivable. A mine still does not care how advanced a radar is. A fast boat still compresses decision time. A drone swarm can still force mistakes. A false report can still move markets before the truth catches up. The network gives America an edge, not immunity. And that difference matters. This was not a clean American victory. It was a successful passage through a dangerous test. That visibility changes the psychology of the strait. Iran wants an American captain to feel boxed in, surrounded, and forced to choose between retreat and escalation. Project Freedom flips that pressure back on Tehran. The destroyer in the strait has aircraft above it, sensors beyond the horizon, missile defense on deck, and commanders watching the whole board. The convoy is not protected only by armor. It is protected by time information and speed of decision. See first, share first, intercept first if forced, move always. That is how a narrow sea lane stops being a trap. If something launches, the network is already awake. SM-2 and SM-6 interceptors are not just missiles sitting in tubes. They're the final motion of a chain that began with detection, classification, and shared data. If something leaks through the outer layers, the ship still has the last door. Phalanx CIWS, the radar-guided gun built for the final seconds, firing thousands of rounds per minute at any threat that breaks through. Nobody wants to reach that layer, but every sailor knows it exists. The ship was built to survive in layers not by luck. That is why the passage through Hormuz mattered more than any press conference. Iran thought it was testing 2 destroyers. It was testing the entire American way of war. Tehran built a trap out of geography. Washington answered with a network. And once that network entered the fight, the trap stopped looking like a cage. It started looking like a live-fire exam Iran may not want to repeat. The biggest weapon was not the carrier, not the destroyer, not even the missile. The weapon was the connection between all of them. America did not just send ships through Hormuz, it sent a system. Hormuz was never just a battlefield, it was a test of whether pressure can still control the sea lanes that keep the modern world alive. Iran tried to turn geography into leverage. One narrow strip of water became a pressure point aimed at oil markets, shipping companies, insurance desks, and American families who only feel the crisis when fuel, food, and freight get more expensive. Tehran did not need to sink a carrier to create pain. It only needed the world to believe the next ship might not make it through. But on May 4th, that equation changed. The USS Truxtun and USS Mason kept moving. Project Freedom revealed the deeper truth behind them. Real power was not only the steel of the hull, the missiles in the tubes, or the aircraft over the horizon. Real power was connection, sensors, ships, aircraft, drones, commanders, and data moving as one body. Iran built a trap out of geography. America answered with a system. The crisis is not over, but the stakes are clearer now. If coercion works in Hormuz, every hostile power with a coastline and a choke point learns the same lesson. Threaten the passage, shake the market, make democracies pay at the pump. But if that pressure fails there, the message travels just as far. The sea lanes are not protected by speeches. They are protected by resolve, readiness, and the ability to keep moving when the other side wants the world to freeze. Hormuz is not just a strait, it is a warning. Iran fired, America did not blink, and now the question is not just what Tehran does next. The question is whether the world just watched Iran test American power or expose the limits of its own. If that question matters to you, stay with us for the next breakdown, because Hormuz may only be the first warning sign.